The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, a Good Omens multi-voice podfic written by Waywarder and read by
SkyAsimaru
and Djapchan. Chapter 1, Tursiops Truncatus. There's a boy I know, he's the one I dream of. Look into my eyes, take me to the clouds above. Oh, I lose control, can't seem to get enough. When I wake from dreaming, tell me, is it really love?
It's not.
Crowley snarled under his breath as some bullshit candy-pink vodka sloshed over his black fingernails.
Watch it!
Yelped bees over the loud music as some of the sickly sweet liquor slipped off the bar and onto their shoes.
You watch it!
Crowley shouted right back, angry at everything, angry at nothing. He took out some of his aggression on the cherry and wedge of lime he speared with a sword pick. Out of finesse, out of fucks to give, he dropped the garnish into the magenta cocktail and slid it across the bar with perhaps more vigor than it deserved.
Can I get an extra cherry?
The man on the other side of the bar hollered over Miss Whitney Houston. How dare he? Crowley opened his mouth to tell him where he could go find his extra cherry, but bees grabbed him by the back of the shirt and tucked him away so that they could answer instead.
Sure, coming right up.
Fuck, was Bees playing good bartender tonight? He must really have been in a...
What's got you into such a snit?
Bees turned on him as the extra-cherried man and his date ambled away, arms tight around each other's waist. Crowley opened his mouth again, even stuck a hand in the air for emphasis, but... fuck, he didn't know. Okay, he did know. He just didn't want the whole bloody world to know what a pitiful prick he was.
It's too sparkly.
To emphasize his comment, he flicked a fallen bit of sequins off of the bar. As patrons came and went, more and more glitter was being left behind on their admittedly sticky workstation.
I've seen you in sparklier.
Bees raised a skeptical eyebrow. Which, okay, also true. Get a bit of gin, and worse, a bit of hope into Crowley, and he could sparkle with the best of them.
Well, then, how about this?
Crowley countered, determined now to earn his bad mood.
What have these big corporations got to do with pride? It's disingenuous, isn't it? They don't really give a shit, do they?
Bees shrugged and looked out over the crowd.
They seem happy.
Crowley bit back a sigh as he turned his own gaze to survey the packed atrium beneath them. They did seem happy. Look, Crowley didn't have anything really against Pride Night. For starters, he was gay, flaming like anything even. But big, happy, in-your-face parties celebrating love and togetherness? Yeah, not so much his thing. Doesn't really matter why. Also...
And what the fuck does being gay have to do with fish?
Crowley demanded, a bit quieter this time, as a new, already wasted guest stumbled up to the bar and ordered 2 tequila shots. His waist, too, had a strong, handsome arm wrapped around it. Crowley noticed with just enough bitterness curdling his blood.
Fish can be gay.
Bees scowled at him as they poured the tequila.
Don't be an asshole. I know fish can be gay.
He didn't. Crowley folded his arms across his chest, frowning.
Maybe you're the arsehole.
Truthfully, he knew fuck all about fish, which, in that moment, only made him hate this gig at the fucking aquarium even harder. He hadn't even seen a fish since they'd gotten here for set up hours ago. The bartenders were set up in front of some awful 4D theater on the second floor of the massive place. And it was massive. The floor of the atrium must have been packed with close to thousands of people. Just humans, though, not a fin or flipper inside.
Doesn't all this loud music bother the fish?
Crowley wondered out loud.
Aren't they trying to sleep?
Beast grumbled a reply as they wiped down their little makeshift bar.
Hold up. Do fish sleep?
Fuck, he really didn't know anything about fish.
If you go take a break to ask someone, will you be less of a prick for the rest of the night?
Beast slapped at his arm with a dirty rag.
I make 0 promises.
Crowley answered honestly, but he jumped at the chance for a break from all of these happy, sparkly idiots all the same.
Be back in 10.
Beast yelled after him. Crowley flicked his fingers over his shoulders in a salute of acknowledgement, but really, if he got fired tonight, would it be so terrible? Fuck, this aquarium was enormous. For lack of anywhere better to go, Crowley hustled down the staircase before him and instantly regretted it. He was shoulder to shoulder with happy queer trunks as far as the eye could see. He dealt with trunks all the time. They were nothing new. If he was going to be stuck here until after midnight, he thought it was only decent to get to see one fish.
Down to go up, I suppose.
Crowley squared his shoulders back and fixed his sights on a quiet-looking escalator across the atrium. He pushed his way through the sea of partygoers around him and did his damnedest to ignore the soppy, love-struck gazes of the couples clinging to one another like barnacles. At least he clambered up the escalator 2 steps at a time. Escalators never went as fast as Crowley liked. Crowley always felt like he was sprinting ahead of everything else, moving too quickly, thinking too quickly, asking too many questions. The trouble was he never seemed to know where he was headed. Except for tonight. Tonight he was going to see a fucking fish. Thank somebody, the dim-lit hallway at the top of the escalator was as empty as he'd hoped. Crowley frowned as he looked around. He could see why. There didn't appear to be any fish up here either. It didn't seem like there was much of anything up here. The happy pop music seemed eternities away up in this hallway. Perhaps no fish, but possibly the perfect place to sneak a cigarette. Crowley sauntered deeper into the quiet hallway. It was almost eerie up here, in contrast to the loud brightness down in the rest of the building. Otherworldly, sort of. Crowley wandered and wandered past the dark blue walls until the hallway opened up before him into a larger, still empty room. Crowley shoved his hands into his horrible uniform trouser pockets and stepped into the room, feeling a little bit like he was walking into another dimension. And it was still dark and quiet up here, still disconcertingly so, but he soon found he wasn't entirely alone. As Crowley stepped into the space and glanced to his right, he discovered a huge tank of water. The water was darker than Crowley expected to see at an aquarium. Like someone had turned out the fish's lights. Did fish need it to be dark to sleep?
Do fish sleep?
Crowley asked again, placing a hand up against the tank's window.
Oh, that's a very good question.
Out of the darkness came the kindest voice Crowley had ever heard, and Crowley nearly jumped out of his skin.
Fuck!
He shouted, turning in an awkward circle, his back colliding with the tank's window.
Terribly sorry,
exclaimed the kindest voice Crowley had ever heard.
I didn't mean to startle you.
Crowley opened his mouth, prepared for venom to pour forth, but the kindest voice Crowley had ever heard was attached to the bluest eyes Crowley had ever seen, and the softest hair, and presently the warriordest face, and the nicest—
Jesus fuck, get it together. Wasn't startled,
Crowley murmured, straightening up his jacket in a hopeless attempt at the preservation of his dignity.
Just wasn't expecting to see anyone else up here. That's what startled means, idiot. It's the troubling thing about the design of this exhibit, I'm afraid.
The bluest eyes nodded their head in understanding.
Guests seem to think it's closed, or they don't think there's anything up here. If they just peruse the map before planning their visit, I really do think they'd have a more thorough and enjoyable time. Well done to you for persevering, really.
The warriordest face Crowley had ever seen blushed a little pink there in the darkness.
But listen to me, nattering on. You had a question, didn't you?
Crowley, as usual, had 1,000 questions.
Who are you? Where did you come from? What makes your hair that colour? Is it real? Are you real? What are you so worried about? Can I help? What can I do? Do they sleep?
Crowley gestured back at the window, fighting to keep the awe down in his voice. He turned back around to look.
What's in here, anyway?
The kindest voice took a step closer to the window. Even the faintest light coming in from above the water was enough to illuminate this particular man. He leaned forward and peered into the tank, his hands clasped behind his back. Crowley chanced a glance at the name tag on the pale blue shirt beside him.
Aziraphale. Look up.
Aziraphale almost whispered, his voice something soft and reverent. Crowley did. He didn't know how he hadn't noticed them at first. They were huge, bigger than he'd ever imagined. They also didn't seem as quick and frolicky as he'd always pictured, just sort of floating quietly along near the dark surface.
Bottlenose dolphins,
Aziraphale continued.
Tursiops Truncatus.
Crowley ignored what his insides did at the sound of Aziraphale speaking Latin.
They don't sleep like you and I do. Cetaceans engage in something called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep.
Crowley didn't understand what any of those words meant, but he liked that Aziraphale was saying them.
What does that mean?
Crowley asked, still staring at the supposedly slumbering dolphins.
Essentially, only one half of their brain sleeps at a time. That's why dolphins sleep with one eye open. That's brilliant,
Crowley said, and he meant it. Look, even surely caterers can be impressed by a cool fact now and again. He stepped as close as he could to the window and cupped his hands around his eyes, trying to see the dolphin's closed eyes.
It's a bit hard to see in the dark,
Aziraphale admitted, something of an apology in his voice.
But believe me, when they're awake, one can really tell. Very playful.
Don't they get bored in here all day?
Crowley frowned at the thought.
Another excellent question.
Aziraphale replied enthusiastically.
Their trainers work very hard to ensure these animals have a unique day every day. They require constant enrichment, which trainers achieve through a myriad of methods.
So they do tricks?
Aziraphale's nose wrinkled at the word.
We call them behaviors. See, a trainer never tricks a dolphin into doing anything. They always ask.
Huh.
Crowley looked at the dolphins again.
I never thought of it like that.
And they're not fish, you know.
Aziraphale kept talking, the delight to share evident in his voice.
Well, you probably already know that. Only you asked about fish earlier, specifically, so I just wanted to make certain.
Mammals, right?
Crowley cut in, eager to make sure this handsome aquarium worker didn't think he was a complete idiot.
Like us?
Yes!
Aziraphale exclaimed, actually wiggling a little bit.
Exactly right.
What else do you know about them?
He knew his 10 minutes were long past up, but he couldn't find it in his heart to walk away from this handsome man, bathed as he was in the glow of light through artificial sea water. Aziraphale, it turned out, knew quite a lot. It felt like hours. Crowley was probably fired that they stood in front of the window, watching dolphins glide sleepily across the top of the pool. Aziraphale talked the entire time, sometimes gesturing animatedly with his hands, sometimes clasping his hands together, as though he were trying to rein in the enthusiasm. Even fighting against it, though, Crowley noted that Aziraphale seemed to glow with it. With passion. Crowley didn't know if he cared about anything as much as Aziraphale seemed to care about dolphins. When, at last, Aziraphale seemed out of dolphin facts.
What are you doing up here by yourself tonight?
Aziraphale turned his attention from the habitat to Crowley.
I hope you don't mean to tell me I've stolen you away from your friends on a night like tonight.
Steal me,
rumbled a voice deep down in Crowley's guts. Crowley ran his skinny fingers through his bright red hair.
No friends tonight. I'm here with the caterers tonight.
He gestured at his stupid white outfit for emphasis, suddenly very aware of how embarrassed he was to be wearing it in front of Aziraphale.
No worries.
Aziraphale smiled at him.
I'm in uniform tonight, too.
No rest for the...
Crowley didn't know what to say that wouldn't be terribly stupid in that moment. Suddenly, Aziraphale looked quickly to his left and to his right. When he returned his focus to Crowley, his eyes were serious, conspiratorial.
Can you keep a secret?
Crowley nodded, immediately willing to go on whatever strange mission this man could set for him. Aziraphale fished into the pocket of his neat khaki trousers and revealed 2 tiny bottles of some vivid pink stuff. He presented them to Crowley with a bit of a flourish, his eyes fucking twinkling.
Where'd you get that?
Crowley asked, almost as impressed at the thought of Aziraphale sneaking liquor into work as he was at the notion of unihemispheric slow-wave sleep.
I hope you won't find yourself much maligned, my dear.
Aziraphale smiled nervously.
But I might have nabbed them from one of the bars downstairs when no one was looking.
He passed a tiny pink bottle to Crowley.
Happy Pride.
Aziraphale lifted his bottle in a toast. Crowley unscrewed the cap in a bit of a daze, longing again to ask,
Who are you? How did you get here? How did you learn so much about dolphins? Happy Pride.
He repeated, raising his own bottle. They clinked tiny bottles and grimaced as they swallowed the sugary vodka. Some fruity nonsense.
What was that?
Crowley shook his head as soon as the bottle was empty. Aziraphale investigated the little bottle.
Prickly pear, it says.
Ah,
Crowley replied, lamely.
I like pears.
Aziraphale offered.
you like everything.
Crowley already wanted to observe.
Pears, dolphins. What else do you like? You could tell me about it. I'd listen.
How had he ever been so angry on a night like tonight? Nights like tonight were fan-fucking-tastic. Stolen vodka and sleepy dolphins and... When the voice over the loudspeakers boomed out above them, Crowley nearly jumped again. Fuck! Why was he so twitchy all of a sudden? One shot with a fuck handsome aquarium worker, and he was a bloody disaster.
Attention, everyone.
Came the voice from above.
The aquarium will be closing in 15 minutes. Please make your way to the exit through the gift shop. Thank you.
So Crowley was definitely fired.
Well, I'm afraid that's my cue to gently kick you out.
Right.
Crowley agreed. Neither of them moved.
It's been a pleasure talking with you.
The words seemed to rush out of Aziraphale, as though he could only contain them as well as he could contain his enthusiasm for dolphins.
You two. I mean, me too, I guess. I mean, fuck. It was nice to talk to you too, Aziraphale.
Aziraphale's eyes grew wide for just a moment before he caught himself and laughed.
Oh.
Fuck, his laugh was adorable. His whole body lit up with it, as though Aziraphale being even lighter was somehow possible.
And for those of us not in name tags?
Crowley.
Well, the dolphins and I thank you for your patronage, Mr. Crowley.
Aziraphale said, beginning at last to shepherd Crowley back towards the dark pre-dolphin hallway. Crowley felt like he was underwater himself now, moving in slow motion away from this magnificent creature. His tongue felt too heavy in his mouth. Everything around him felt alien and strange. He just knew that he didn't want to leave yet.
Balls over, Cinderella.
Whispered a snide voice in his head.
You're definitely fired, and he's just being nice because he works here.
Right. Get it together.
Night, then.
Crowley nodded one last time to Aziraphale.
Thanks for the drink. Promise not to tell the boss on you.
And he went to walk back down the hallway. That was that.
Wait!
Aziraphale called after him. Crowley turned around, only to find a bit of paper being pressed softly into his hand. Crowley flinched in surprise at the sudden contact, which seemed to only serve in increasing the worry on Aziraphale's face.
Your next visit is on me.
Aziraphale said in a hurry, pulling his hand back as soon as the paper was secure in Crowley's palm.
I mean, you didn't even get to see all the animals this time, did you? We really do have a marvelous living collection, and you should get to see them all, and...
He opened his mouth as though to keep talking, as though he could keep talking to Crowley all night, but seemed to finally outworry himself. He shut his mouth and, with an awkward little nod and wave, he turned back away and disappeared around a corner behind the dolphins. Crowley stood still and watched his brilliant white hair disappear.
Who are you?
After a long moment, he looked down to the complimentary ticket now closed tightly in his fist.
Next visit. Well,
Crowley said.
That was a thing.
He looked back at the dolphins one more time before going down his own hallway, back down to somewhere like Earth. How will I know if he really loves me? I say a prayer with every heartbeat. I fall in love whenever we meet. I'm asking you what you know about these things. To be continued in Chapter 2.